Can stepchildren inherit? The topic of today's video is whether or not stepchildren can inherit from your estate. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Ask Amity Show. And I'm Cindy. I'm an attorney at Amity Law Group, and I'm here with Jennifer, my partner. We want to talk to you about whether or not stepchildren can inherit. Stepchildren or foster children can inherit from step-parents or foster parents' estate. So California Probate Code Section 6454 states that a stepchild, or a foster child can inherit from a step-parent or a foster parent if three elements are fulfilled. So first element is the relationship began during the person's minority. So while the stepchild was of a very young age before they became an adult, essentially. Second element is the relationship continued throughout the joint lifetimes of the person and the person's foster parent or step-parent. So you can't just have started the relationship when you were a minor, but the relationship must continue throughout your joint lifetime, presumably until the step-parent or foster parent's death. And then the third element is whether or not you can establish by clear and convincing evidence that the foster parent / step-parent would have adopted the person, but for a legal barrier. So the first two elements are pretty straightforward. Basically make sure that the relationship began when you were a minor and that you continued that relationship throughout your joint lifetimes. But the third element, how do we prove the third element? So usually it is established by showing that the biological parent refused to consent to the adoption of the minor child. So for example, if you were the stepchild and your mom got remarried, then you would need your biological dad's consent in order for your stepdad to adopt you. And oftentimes the biological dad or step-parent or biological parent would refuse consent. And if that's the case, then you've satisfied the third element. However, what happens is when the child is no longer a minor and no longer requires the consent of their biological parent for the adoption. So that becomes an adult adoption. And the law is essentially saying that if that legal barrier is no longer there, which ceases when the child becomes no longer a minor, and they were never formally adopted, then that stepchild cannot satisfy that third element and thus cannot inherit.
Right. So I think what the law really is just trying to interpret is your intent, right? And so basically the law concludes that if you didn't adopt your stepchild at any time in your life, then perhaps that was never your intention for that child to inherit from your estate. So, a lot of times, especially with adoption, I think many feel that it's basically pretty rare to hear a step-parent adopt an adult child because, maybe they didn't think that it's necessary to formalize the relationship because they've already felt like that child is already their own child, even though by law, that child doesn't really, formally belong to you as your own child. So again, it's important to really just acknowledge that, the law doesn't work on your feelings, right? Because everybody's feelings may be different. It's subjective versus objective. So you really need to make your intent clear. So in order to avoid these type of issues, either, number one, choose to adopt your child, whether or not they're minors or adults. And again, if they were minors, then you would need their biological parents' consent. But again, once they are adults, you can still adopt them as your child, as an adult child. That would not require their parents' consent, their biological parents' consent. Or alternatively, you can create an estate plan that includes your stepchildren as beneficiaries. And that would be very, very clear cut that that was your intent all along, is to provide your inheritance to this stepchild, regardless of, having to formally adopt them or not. As long as you put them in as beneficiaries within your estate plan, then they would be acknowledged as beneficiaries of your estate and be able to inherit from your estate. So just, remember to plan ahead. And if you want to provide for your stepchildren, it's our advice to create an estate plan that clearly states, who you want inheriting from your estate. So again, thank you for watching this episode. We're very, very happy that you've tuned in. And if you have any further questions, feel free to contact us at Amity Law Group. Thank you.
And remember to subscribe.